Beneath the blazing Texas night, Cole walked on, to a courthouse stage ready to propose, and instead watched forbidden images of his lover Dean explode across the giant screen, exposing a double life. To the entire town, humiliated, he fled into the dark where a lone white truck slowed, its driver Wyatt, at a rugged rancher with eyes like a quiet storm. One touch of Wyatt's calloused hand set off a tension hotter than the desert air, drawing Cole into secret dawn coffees, dangerous midnight cattle drives, and a kiss that burned like lightning. But Dean wasn't finished. He returned with a ruthless scheme, using corporate money and Cole's own shop to slice a pipeline through Wyatt's land and force Cole back under his control. Storms raged, threats sharpened, and every glance between Cole and Wyatt had turned into a promise and a dare. Will Cole fight for the man who steadied his heart, or will Dean's power tear them apart before their love can even begin? The next move could destroy everything whose name will Cole whisper when the final door opens. West Texas kept its secrets until night. They flashed 12 feet tall above the courthouse stage. The fundraiser lights threw warm halos on brick. The town leaned forward, polite, curious, ready for pie auctions in 2 steps. I had my father's thin gold ring in my pocket and a plan ID practiced in the shop like a song. Fix the final cue, step up, look at Dean, and say the thing we never said in public. Cole Bennett, the MC, boomed, the man who keeps our rigs alive. I clicked the remote. Our pumper gleamed at sunrise. I clicked again. The air turned to glass. Dean's neck filled the screen, then his hand in another man's shirt. Not obscene, just close, private, unmistakable. A grid of messages slid in after it, his face in the corner, a name at the top, Whitaker Reed. Houston number, I knew Dean's after. Midnight punctuation like I knew the hum of our breaker box. For a beat the band forgot to play. I stabbed the button, the laptop refused obedience. A hotel selfie, ID never seen, blinked up like an accusation. My mouth tried a sentence and failed. People stared the way they do at a funnel cloud that hasn't decided where to land. Dean came down the side aisle in a gray suit that fit like a decision. He stepped between me and the screen and said, "Calm, turn it off." I yanked the cable. Blackness fell, every eye swung to us, small, town silence is louder than any siren. "You think I did this?" I said. My tongue was dust. "What did you do to my phone?" He answered without looking at me. Then to the room, easy smile, technical hiccup. "Folks, I was going to escalator." The ring box pressed a square ache into my thigh. The word ID saved for a right moment escaped anyway. "I loved you." He flinched like at a camera flash. "Not here." The smile stayed, his eyes didn't. Someone coughed, someone laughed once, and then regretted it. I felt a hairline crack run through me in a soundless way, like ice under a boot. I walked off the stage. People parted and tried not to meet my eyes. Outside, heat hung like a held breath. I kept walking until the courthouse glow fell behind me and the night swallowed the last polite murmur. I drove with no destination, past the diner and the water tower and the final streetlight that surrenders too dark. The radio tried a joke, I killed it. The steering wheel burned my palm. I pulled onto the shoulder and cut the engine. Dust rose, settled, painted the hood in pale gray. I opened the box and let the ring wink back. It looked smaller than I remembered, still stubborn. "You were supposed to fix things," I told it, and hated how ruined I sounded. Headlights bloomed on the curve, a single pair, steady, not in a hurry. When the truck was close enough to paint me white, I flicked my wrist and threw the ring into the ditch. It made a hard, ordinary sound that felt like an insult. The other driver rolled by slow, hat brim, shoulders, a clean profile, a glance that landed and held for half a second. He looked at me the way you look at weather. Then he was gone, taillights shrinking to nothing. I climbed down into the ditch and sifted gravel with both hands. Weeds scratched my wrists. The highway hissed behind me like a sleeping thing. I kept searching until my fingers knew the circle by memory more than sight. I found it, cold metal against warm skin. My hand remembered where it belonged even if I didn't. When I stood, my knees protested. I held the ring between thumb and forefinger, not putting it back on and not letting it fall. My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Dean, don't make a scene. We'll talk later. Please be normal." Normal was back at the courthouse, pretending not to see light. Normal was a costume I had worn until it split. Something had broken that could not be unbroken, and the pieces were sharp enough to cut clean through the part of me that believed him. I closed my fist and felt the edges bite. The night smelled like warm metal and road tar and the kind of summer that never cools. I made a new promise, smaller, meaner, mine. I would not beg him to choose me again. If I was going to be seen, I'd let the town watch me walk through the fire instead of crawl. In the distance, a train spoke in low metal, like an old friend refusing to lie. I looked down the highway to where the one truck had disappeared and told myself I was fine, because saying it out loud was the only thing keeping me upright. The words didn't fit my mouth, but I said them anyway. Then I climbed back into my pickup and sat with the engine off and the windows down, letting the heat and the quiet settle into the empty space Dean had left. I didn't know it yet, but the look from that passing driver had already found the fault line inside me, turning it from a crack into a path. Morning didn't arrive it pressed down like a hangover I hadn't earned. I slept in the cab until sun lit the dust on my windshield, and the phone stacked with messages. Dean, my mother, the MC, customers asking if the shop was open. They all read like one sentence, be normal now. I wasn't. I lifted the bay door anyway. Steel and grease greeted me like a sober friend. Work was a language I could speak when my mouth failed, so I picked up a wrench and pretended the world hadn't tilted. Word traveled faster than torque by noon. 3 slow leaks and 2 careful questions had visited. I kept my head down until Dean's truck crept by the bay and didn't stop. He drove on like the road was an alibi. Something deflated inside me, soft and final. I closed early. Heat jittered above the asphalt. I locked the door and turned toward my truck and paused. Parked at the curb was the white pickup from last night, bumper scuffed, a bull rope in the bed. The driver leaned against the fender with a paper cup and that weather gaze. Your ring okay? He asked. I touched the pocket by reflex, found it good. He nodded once. I am why. At Hale, Cole, close up, he looked like a decision kept late 30s, sun on his neck, a nick on his brow. You stopped traffic last night, he said. You stopped me. I didn't plan fireworks. Never do. They arrive, he sipped. I run cattle north of town, haul on-off weeks. Saw you in the ditch. Figured I'd see if you needed a hand without making it worse. Appreciate the restraint. He glanced through the bay. You closing because of talk or because of heat? Both. Ride with me, Wyatt said. 10 minutes, fresh air if we pretend. I heard my mother. Be normal. I heard myself. Don't crawl. All right, I said. We took the farm to Market Road behind the elevator. Wind slid through the open window and smoothed the static a little. Wyatt let the road work, then asked, you and that man. How long? 3 years, I said. 5, if you count the waiting to name it. Waiting's the longest part. You sound like you know. He watched fence posts pass. I learned to stop wishing the county would clap when I breathe. No applause yesterday, I said. Ain't no judge in the courthouse that can sentence you to shame, he answered. But you can. We turned at an unmarked gate. He eased the truck into a pasture where mesquite made thin shade and parked by a water trough. The quiet had weight. I didn't bring you out here to fix you, Wyatt said, just to where the town can't see you bleed. Something inside me unclenched. Thank you, he set his cup on the dash and looked at me full. What do you need right now? I need proof the world didn't end. Touch the truck, he said. I laid my palm on the dash. Heat met skin simple and undeniable. You're here, he said. So are you. The words landed like a hand on my ribs and stayed. I breathed and the breath didn't hurt. His knee brushed mine. When he shifted he didn't move away. Neither did I. You hungry? He asked. Can't tell yet. Then well call that progress. He turned the key and the engine answered. When you can tell, it'll feed you. On the drive back our reflections shared the side mirrored. Woe men pretending to be fine, almost convincing. A message from Dean flashed and went dark. I pictured the courthouse screen and felt heat rise, but not shame this time. It was a beginning I hadn't ordered. Why, had stopped at my curb. Coffee's at 6 at the little place by the pump station, he said. If you happen to be there, we won't call it anything. I might be there, then I might happen to save you a seat. He tapped the wheel. Easy, Cole. He drove off. The town watched without watching. I touched the ring and didn't wear it. I unlocked the shop and stood in the doorway until the bell's echo faded, listening to a quiet that seemed less like an end than a door. I showed up early and pretended I was only there for coffee. I chose a table facing the door so I could leave if I needed to. My hands betrayed me, polishing a spoon with a napkin. Wyatt walked in at 6:02. He sat across from me without asking if the chair was free. His presence lowered the static. You beat me, he said. Still pretending it's nothing, I said. Good. Nothing can breathe. He looked at my spoon. You planning to see yourself or someone else in that shine? Trying to see a man who didn't fall apart on stage, I said. You didn't fall apart. You finished the cue, a twitch at his mouth. Then you walked, we drank. I have work after, I said. A clutch on a Ford, then a milk run for parts. After, he said, you'll come help me feed. It is de romance invite. It's just hands on a task and time with a sky that isn't judging. You said sky, I said. That sounds like romance where I come from. He didn't blink. If the word scares you, we can call it daylight. I went. We took the levee road and traded 3 facts apiece like cautious buyers. Oldest of 2, he said. Sold the good roping horse last year. I don't like fireworks. Only child, I said. Mother keeps my baby pictures in a tin. Oil makes sense to me and people don't. He glanced over. People are just pressure with shoes. At the pens the cattle blew. We flaked hay, cut twine, hauled buckets. Work folded us together without asking permission. When I reached for a bale, his hand got there first. My fingers paused on rough twine, and the back of his hand hard, warm, nicked. He didn't flinch, neither did I. The touch lasted a beat too long to be an accident, and a beat too short to be called anything. Sorry, I said, though I wasn't. Nah, he said, voice low. It helps to know what's real. We moved without talking for a while. The quiet wasn't empty, it was crowded with things we weren't saying. I watched the way his shirt stuck to his shoulder blades when he heaved sacks, the way his breath left steady. My ribs ached in the good, human way. Dean texted, I said, finally. He wants a talk tonight. Says he can't explain. Why, at poured grain into a trough. Hell, explain until your ears forget they are connected to a heart. You a doctor now, just a man who has rehearsed exits. He brushed his hands and looked at me. No pity, you don't owe me a choice. You owe yourself a quiet room inside the decision. We finished, then sat on the tailgate. A horsefly chose my knee. Wyatt swatted it with 2 fingers, close enough that the heat of him brushed my skin. You flinched, he said. Only on the outside. That's the part folks see. He reached in the cooler, handed me water. Our fingers met again, not an accident this time. He let the pause stay. What do you want from me, Cole? He asked. Right now, I want the sound to stop. I want to remember what steady feels like. I want a thing that doesn't ask me to be smaller to earn it. His throat worked. He nodded once, as if he were agreeing to the price of a tool. I can't promise steady, he said, but I don't know how to be another man's secret. Me neither, I said. Wind shifted. A scrap of hay touched his jaw. I reached without thinking and brushed it away with the back of my fingers. Skin on skin, an inch of contact, a jolt that didn't hurt. His breath touched the side of my thumb and paused. Neither of us moved. He spoke first, voice quieter than before. Do you want me to stop? I don't want you to lie, I said. Am not lying. He turned his face just enough that my hand was almost cradling it. Heat came through his stubble and through the daylight we were pretending. He didn't kiss me. He let the space burn between us until the shape of it was undeniable. A truck rattled by the far fence. The moment folded, but it didn't vanish. You have that talk with him. Wyatt said. End it or mend it. Whatever you pick, do it head up. If you keep a door half open, the wind will break it. And you, I asked, you'll be here doing chores the way I was yesterday and the way you'll be tomorrow. If you come back, it'll be because you want to, not because you need a witness to your pain. That sounds like an invitation and a boundary. Smart man. We rode back in a silence that didn't cut. My phone buzzed twice, then 3 times. When he dropped me, I didn't get out. He didn't tell me to. Wyatt, I said. Cole, thank you for daylight. He smiled, small and private. Anytime. I watched him pull away. The town still stood where I left it, pretending. The day felt different anyway. I locked up and went home to change for the talk I didn't want. Before I showered, I touched the ring on my dresser and realized my hand wasn't shaking. At the door, I hesitated, then typed to Dean, 7. My place, no performance. Wyatt's warmth lingered like a hand that hadn't moved yet. I let it be there. I didn't call it hope. Truly, I called it proof. Dean arrived 10 minutes late, carrying the smell of cologne I used to wear for him. He stepped into my shop like it was still his second home, shoulders square, eyes scanning the room as if he owned the air. You look tired, he said. You look uninvited, I answered. He tried a smile that once worked on me. Cole, come on. Last night was a broadcast, I cut in. A public service announcement you wrote with someone else's hands. He flinched. That wasn't me. Somebody hacked stop. I raised a hand, the photos, the messages, your words, your punctuation. Dean's mouth tightened. It wasn't serious. Not serious enough to keep off a hotel bed. His silence confirmed everything the courthouse screen had already shown. I didn't mean to humiliate you, he said finally. It just happened. We've been drifting. I felt a steady throb behind my ribs. Drifting is when you miss a date. This was steering into a storm. He looked down, then back up, voice soft. I still love you. The sentence landed like a dull blade. You love the idea of me. The man who keeps the shop open, keeps secrets quiet, lets you play straight when the town's watching. That's not fair. It's true. The quiet stretched until the bay clock clicked. Dean stepped closer. We can't fix this. Go away for a while. Dallas, maybe. No one has to know. No, I said. I'm done being the invisible half of your life. He reached for my arm. I moved back. Don't, I warned. Something hard crossed his face. You think that rancher will save you. I saw him. Why, at Hale he's worse than me. Hell keep you a shadow. I stiffened. Leave him out of this. Dean's voice sharpened. I won't watch you throw everything at a stranger. You already threw everything away, I said. He stepped back, breathing fast. If you walk away, you're alone. This town saw you cheat before it saw me love, I said. I'll survive their stares. For a heartbeat neither of us moved. Then Dean's shoulders sagged, his mask slipping into something almost human. I never thought y'd leave, he whispered. I never thought y'd make me, I replied. He left without another word. The door clanged behind him, the echo like a final verdict. I locked up and stood in the smell of oil and quiet. The shop felt different, larger, but sharper around the edges. My phone buzzed. Wyatt, need a hand at the pens. Night job, you in? I typed back before I could think, on my way. The drive out of town was dark enough to feel like a decision. Stars pressed low, heavy as secrets. Wyatt met me at the gate, lantern in hand, light painting his jaw in copper and shadow. You all right? He asked. I ended it, I said. My voice cracked on the second word. He didn't reach for me. He simply nodded, eyes steady. Good. Now help me with this stubborn gate before the calves figure out they're free. We worked in silence, chain clinking like punctuation. When the gate finally settled, I leaned against the post, breath loud in the night. Wyatt stepped closer, close enough for heat to bridge the inches between us. You sure? He asked. I'm sure. Wind carried the scent of hay and rain that might never come. He lifted a hand, slow enough for me to stop him. I didn't. His fingers found my jaw, light as a question. I closed my eyes. The touch wasted a kiss, waste, and a claim. It was a promise that didn't need words. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt the world tilt toward something that belonged to me. Thunder argued all morning. I opened the shop and tried to pretend the night at Wyatt's gate hadn't redrawn me. The print of his hand on my jaw felt like a compass pointing somewhere that wasn't denial. Business trickled, then stopped. A rancher called about a dead generator. Hale Place took a hit, he said. Lightning on the north ridge. My ribs tightened. Wyatt's, far as I know. I locked the bay, grabbed the toolbox, and drove before fear could sit beside me. Dirt hit the windshield like grit. At the north fence the sky ripped. The gate hung open. I pushed through, tires slurring, and saw a figure at the line, braced like a post. Wyatt! He waved me toward the pens and yelled something the wind stole. We met where a cedar leaned like it had chosen a side. Generators cooked, he shouted. We have to get them to the creek lot before they break. I brought a jump box and bad judgment, I said. He grinned, quick and fierce in the rain. Perfect. The storm made ordinary things dangerous. A slick gate, a rolling rock, wire that tried to ride on my wrist. The herd surged. Wyatt swung a panel. I shoved a calf's lid, found feet, followed its mother. Lightning climbed a mesquite and blew it open. Sound arrived a breath later, flat against the chest. The air tasted like pennies, ozone bit. Keep moving, he said, calm as a list. He worked close. His shoulder hit mine and I felt his heat through wet denim. It steadied me more than the idea of safety. We got the last pair into the lot and chained it. I leaned on the fence, lungs burning, rain-cutting lines through oil and fear. A cut bled at his hairline. You're bleeding, I said. It's scenic. The generator sulked under tin. I popped the cover, smelled cooked coil. She's done. I can pull a unit from town if the road will pretend to be a road. After this cell passes. He measured me with a look that felt like intent. You came fast, you said daylight. Lightning counts, the worst slid east. He noticed my hands shaking and didn't name it. He took my wrist and set my palm against his chest where heat beat under wet fabric. Proof, he said. His heartbeat found mine and slowed it, like tuning idle by ear. Something coiled since the courthouse loosened. Inside, he said, or keep pretending we're not cold. Inside, I said, his kitchen smelled like coffee and rain. We left wet prints. He handed me a towel and a shirt that had learned his shoulders and now tested mine. He turned to change. I stopped him. Stay, he did. He reached, paused, and I closed the last inch. My forehead found his, the kiss waste and fireworks. It was air after being held under, careful and sure. His hand stopped on my ribs like it had always known the address. I felt the warmth through his shirt and through mine and let it be what it was. Not a promise, not a rescue, but a beginning I could hold. When we pulled apart, the room kept the form of us. I laughed once, were ridiculous. Correct, he said. And alive, by afternoon the road behaved. We headed to the shop for a generator. At the light, a truck idled across the street. Dean, he didn't get out. He wanted me to cross. I didn't. He pulled away. Wyatt said nothing. His jaw worked. Back at the ranch, the unit hummed. Barn lights blinked awake. Wyatt leaned on the fender and looked at me with something new care and worry. What, I asked. Whitaker Reed, he said. The name from the screen. He isn't random. Cold threaded my chest. You know him. He's my cousin. Houston Company. The one courting leases. Dean's been talking to him. For months, Wyatt said. Including a right of way across my north pasture. The world tilted, not like falling, more like realizing the ground under your boots belonged to someone else's map. A new threat drew its outline, not just a man in Dean's messages, but a deal that would cut through the life Wyatt held with both hands. So it wasn't only love and lies, I said. It was business. It's always both in this county, he answered. I looked at the barn light, the cattle settling, the cut on his brow. I knew what I might lose if I stepped into this. I also knew how small I felt when I didn't. What do you need? I asked. Someone who knows machines and isn't afraid of silence. Eyes on any paper that tries to make the North Ridge look empty. You have both, I said. Evening softened the edges. A coyote tested a note. Inside, coffee cooled. Outside, a line separated what was from what comes next. I wasn't here only because of a hand on my ribs or a kiss that fit. I was here because the storm showed me what held when everything else came loose. Okay, I said, we do this smart. No performance, he echoed. The roller coaster climbed again. I didn't ask for steady, I asked for true. In the hum of the generator and the look we didn't hide, I got my answer and my enemy. The next day bled into evening before I realized I hadn't eaten. Why? At texted only once the papers moved fast, meet tonight. That was enough. The Hale Ranch house glowed like a low ember when I pulled in. Inside, the smell of coffee and wet leather mixed with tension. Wyatt sat at the table, documents spread like a poker hand. Pipeline Company, he said, tapping a page. Whitaker Red is fronting the deal. Dean's signature sits right here as the local community liaison. I stared at the ink. Dean's cashing out the land under your herd and using you, Wyatt added. Your shop sits on the cleanest route to their staging yard. If you sign a simple temporary access form, they get a corridor. My chest burned. Dean hadn't just betrayed a love mapped me into a business plan. I told him last night we were done, I said. Wyatt met my eyes. He doesn't believe you. A knock rattled the screen door. 3 sharp hits. My stomach recognized the rhythm before my ears. Dean, I opened the door to his storm, gray stare. We need to talk, he said, pushing past the threshold like it owed him space. Wyatt stood, quiet but unmistakably there. Dean looked between us. So it's true, he said, voice flat. You and the cowboy, you and the pipeline, I countered. How much is my silence worth? He blinked, then laughed once bitter. This isn't about you. It's exactly about me. About every fence you planned to cut while I held the gate. Dean stepped closer, heat rising off him. Cole, you don't understand how big this is. Money like this buys a future for both of us, both, I said. You already sold us. Wyatt moved beside me, a calm weight. Time to leave, he told Dean. Dean's jaw flexed. You think you can keep him, you're a distraction. Hell be bored the minute the dust settles. I felt anger climb my spine, hot and precise. Stop talking about me like inventory, I said. I choose who I stand with. You'll regret this, Dean snapped. The company will push through. It'll make sure your shop is the first to feel it. Wyatt's voice dropped low. Not tonight you want. For a long heartbeat the room was only breath and the slow tick of the wall clock. Then Dean exhaled hard, turned and slammed the door so hard the windows shivered. Silence expanded, sharp as broken glass. I pressed my palms to the table. Hell, try something, I said. He already did, Wyatt replied, but now we know. Rain started again, soft at first, then steady. Wyatt reached across the paperwork and covered my hand with his. The simple pressure held more promise than any ring ID ever carried. You don't owe me a fight, he said. I'm already in it, I answered. His thumb moved once over my knuckles, slow and deliberate. I felt the day's fury drain, leaving a clarity I hadn't known in months. Cole, he said quietly, I won't hide what I feel. I want you here with me, but only if you want it, not because you're running from him. I looked at our Hanshi skin rough from rope and rain, mine still trembling from the door slam. "I'm not running," I said. "I'm choosing." He searched my face like a map, then leaned in. His forehead touched mine, a quiet seal. The storm outside built its own percussion inside. The world finally slowed. Neither of us called it love. We didn't need the word. The truth was heavier and more certain than any name. When I left that night, the road was slick and silver. Dean's taillights burned somewhere in the distance, a warning and a dare. I drove past without slowing, the echo of Wyatt's heartbeat still steady in my palm. The next morning, sunlight came like it didn't know what happened. Dust lifted off the road in small, lazy spirals. My shop smelled of metal and rain, soaked wood, the kind of scent that keeps secrets. Dean never texted again. No threats, no apology, just silence heavy enough to bend the air. I heard from a customer that the pipeline company pulled its public permit request you much noise about right, of way too many eyes. Whether Dean folded or the company cut him loose, you'll never know. Maybe that's the point. I worked until the heat turned cruel. Each clang of a wrench echoed through the empty bay like a verdict. My phone stayed face down, though I checked it anyway. Nothing. Near dusk a single pickup eased into the lot. White paint, scuffed bumper. Wyatt stepped out with a slow, unhurried gait, like someone who knew how to wait for answers. "You all right?" he asked. "I keep saying yes," I said. "Sometimes I believe it." He nodded, eyes steady. "The ridge is quiet." Cattle settled. "Paperwork's a mess but safe." Dean gone. Folks say Houston, maybe Dallas, maybe nowhere. We stood in the doorway as the sky burned to copper. Neither of us filled the silence. It felt earned. Why? At finally said, "You don't owe me a future, and you don't owe me a rescue," I replied. A small smile touched the corner of his mouth. Then we just there. The simplicity startled me. After months of half-truths and public betrayals are sounded like freedom. I locked the shop and walked with him to the truck. When we reached the driver's side, he took my hand, no hesitation, no need to hide. His thumb traced the faint scar where Dean's ring had once rested. "You keeping it?" "Why?" Ed asked. I pulled the small box from my pocket. The ring lay inside, catching the last smear of sunlight. "Keeping is the same as wearing," I said. I closed the box and set it on the hood, letting the metal cool in the open air. We leaned against the truck, shoulder to shoulder, watching the sun sink behind the water tower. The town kept its distance, pretending not to watch. Wyatt spoke without looking at me. "Tomorrow I haul feed to the south pasture, early. Could use a second set of hands. I might be there." I said, "That's enough." The evening wind carried the smell of mesquite and rain that never quite arrives. Somewhere beyond the horizon a train horn stretched thin and lonely, a sound that didn't ask for an answer. I thought of the courthouse lights, the storm, the way Wyatt's heartbeat steadied mine in a dark kitchen. I thought of Dean's silence, the ring cooling on the hood, the choice ID already made. When the first stars pricked the sky, Wyatt squeezed my hand ungentle, certain, and let go. We didn't kiss, we didn't need to. I climbed into my truck, engine off, windows down, and listened to the night settle around us. The road ahead was unmarked, the kind you follow not because you know where it ends, but because you've finally decided who you are when you start.